You think you're in control, but you're just reacting. You think you're strong because you fight back, because you say what you feel, because you never let things slide. But here's the truth. They want you to react. They design the trigger. You supply the explosion. And every time you do, you expose your code. They know what breaks you, what provokes you, what makes you spiral. And you think that's power? That's not strength. That's vulnerability on display. Every reaction you give is a leak of data, of pattern, of control. You're not defending yourself. You're playing their game, on their timeline, with their script. They poke, you move, they push, you explode. And when you look back, you'll call it being real. But real doesn't mean predictable. It means aware. So ask yourself, what if silence isn't weakness? What if silence is strategy? What if the most dangerous person in the room is the one who doesn't flinch? The system trains you to react, not to think. You weren't born reactive. You were made that way, trained, conditioned, by media, by school, by your environment. The system doesn't want thinkers. It wants reactors. Because a thinking mind pauses, a reactive one obeys. Look at your feed. Drama, outrage, noise, headlines that scream, stories designed to provoke. You're not scrolling information. You're scrolling triggers. And with every swipe, the system asks one question. What makes you flinch? Once it knows, it doesn't need to convince you. It just needs to press play. Same input, same emotion, same behavior. That's not awareness. That's automation. That's how you get hacked, without even realizing it. And it gets worse. You think your reaction is power. You think speaking out proves strength. You think quick emotion means you're real. But what if all of that is exactly what they want? Because the more reactive you are, the more predictable you become. And the more predictable you are, the easier you are to manipulate. They don't care what side you choose, as long as you react, left or right, calm or outraged, agree or disagree. As long as you're activated, you're inside the system. And while you're arguing, they're observing. While you react, they adapt. And while you defend your feelings, they're adjusting the algorithm to make sure you feel more and think less. That's not chaos. That's design. Every emotional outburst is data. Every rant is a signal. Every public reaction is a pattern they can map. And once you're mapped, you're manageable. That's why restraint is power. That's why silence is strategy. Because the moment you flinch, you've already lost positioning. You think you're being honest. You're just being decoded. You think you're being real. You're just running the same emotional script you've been taught to call your personality. So next time you feel triggered, pause. Not for peace, but for power. Because if they can trigger you, they don't need to control you. You'll do it to yourself. But how do you know if the system has already hijacked you? Let's break it down. Signs you're being controlled. Through your reactions, you think you're choosing, but you're not. You're reacting, and every reaction is a sign of control. Here's how to know. 1. You respond before you understand. You read a comment and feel anger. Not because it's true, but because it touched an unresolved emotion you never questioned. Trigger. Reaction. No space, no gap, no thought, just emotion, masquerading as clarity. 2. You say things you don't mean, then justify them. You explode in conversation. You call it honesty. But deep down, you regret it. Still, you defend it. because admitting you lost control feels weaker than pretending it was real. 3. You feel personally attacked by neutral input, a tone, a glance, a delayed reply. Suddenly, you're spiraling, not because they hurt you, but because your system was wired to overread danger. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between a life threat and a tweet. 4. You repeat the same reactions every time. You get defensive. You shut down. You over-explain. You chase validation. Same situation. Same reaction. Different day. That's not you responding. That's your system looping. 5. You confuse reaction with identity. You say, "That's just how I am." But what if that's just how you've been programmed? The version of you that explodes when ignored, that panics when judged, that shrinks when challenged, is not your essence. It's your script. And as long as you wear it like truth, you'll never question its origin. The real danger is not the trigger itself, it's the fact that you don't notice it. Because when a system runs silently, it runs forever. You'll think you're in control. You'll think you're self-aware. But you're just performing a well-rehearsed loop. And you won't break it until you interrupt it. Not with emotion. Not with logic. With observation. Cold. Clear. Precise. The emotional loop. How the system hacks you in 150 milliseconds. Before you think, you react. That's not poetry. That's neuroscience. Your brain doesn't wait for logic. It defaults to pattern. Because speed equals survival. From trigger to emotion. 150 milliseconds. That's how long it takes for your system to hijack your mind. Here's how it works. Trigger. A sound, a tone, a glance. Association. Memory lights up. Emotion floods. Based on the past, not the present. Reaction. Without thought. Without choice. This is not intelligence. It's repetition. And your brain loves repetition. Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. And familiar equals safe, even if it destroys you. So you fight the same arguments, get hurt by the same people, feel insecure in the same scenarios. It's not personal, it's programmable. And once the loop installs, your nervous system does the rest. Heart rate rises, breath shortens, adrenaline kicks in. You think you're feeling it, but really, you're being rerouted through an old neural pathway. You don't choose the reaction, you just carry it out. That's why awareness isn't enough. You can know better and still react the same. Because loops don't break with knowledge. They break with interruption. And you can't interrupt what you haven't recognized. Most people don't live their life. They live their loop and defend it like identity. Your anger isn't just emotion, it's a shortcut. So is your anxiety, your jealousy, your shutdown. Each one, a pre-installed defense mechanism from a time you were trying to survive. But you're not there anymore. The threat is gone. But the reaction stayed. Why? Because the system never updated. It never asked, "Is this still helping?" It only asked, "Have we survived this before?" If yes, the loop repeats. Not because it's right, but because it worked. Until you break it, you're not choosing your life. You're replaying survival. Again, and again, and again. Cold rewire. 3 steps to break the loop and redesign reaction. You don't need therapy. You don't need motivation. You need a system interrupt. Reaction isn't broken. It's automatic. And what's automatic can be redesigned. Here's how cold mind rewires your system. 1. Disrupt the sequence. Every loop follows the same pattern. Trigger, emotion, reaction, regret. To break it, you don't need to win. You just need to disrupt. That means one thing. Insert friction. Stand up. Change posture. Say it out loud. This is a loop. The moment you name the pattern, you've stepped outside of it. You stop being the code. You become the coder. No explanation. No analysis. Just disruption. 2. Observe without identity. Now pause and ask, is this me, or is this just my programming? Most people can't separate reaction from self. They say, I'm an anxious person. I have a short fuse. Number. You're just someone who's never interrupted the input long enough to observe it. The key isn't emotion, it's detachment. Watch the emotion like you would watch a movie. Neutral. Quiet. Unafraid to see it clearly. Because the moment you observe without fusing, you gain space. And space equals control. 3. Replace with a command. Your brain won't accept a void. If you remove the old loop, you must install a new one. But not based on feeling. Based on command. What do you do when triggered? Write it. Repeat it. Run it cold. Example. Trigger. Disrespect. New response. Pause. Breathe. Exit. Make it mechanical. Not dramatic. Because the brain doesn't care if it feels good. It only cares if it's familiar. Repeat it enough. And the new loop becomes the default. Not because of emotion, but because of execution. This is how control is reclaimed. Not by force, but by friction. By inserting choice where there was none. You don't react. You run protocol. Cold. Silent. Consistent. And over time, they won't know what breaks you, because you don't break. You calculate. And that's the shift, from being reactive to becoming unreadable. Final message. If they can trigger you, they still own you. You think you're free because you speak your mind, because you feel deeply, because you react fast. But here's the truth. If they can trigger you, they still own you. Because every reaction is a leak, a signal, a map of your programming. And they're not listening to what you say. They're studying how you respond. Anger, defensiveness, silence, collapse. Each one, a key to your control panel. You think your reactions are authentic, but they're just rehearsed, refined by trauma, reinforced by pattern, replayed by habit. And as long as you keep reacting, you'll keep performing the identity they built for you. That's not freedom, that's emotional slavery. So here's the shift. Stop giving away your energy to people who didn't earn it. Stop offering your nervous system to every random input. Cold mind isn't passive, it's strategic. It doesn't suppress emotion, it reroutes it. Silence is not retreat, it's command. Stillness is not weakness, it's unreadability. And from that space, you don't react, you design. And the less they can read you, the less they can own you. In the next video, we'll decode the silent psychological weapons people use to manipulate you through guilt, framing, and subtle expectation. Subscribe. Reclaim control. Break the emotional chain.